Howdy, y'all. Welcome back. It is Skews Day, September 14th, 2021. I'm Trey Crowder. That's Mark Agee. Mark, sad day in the comedy world, eh?
Yeah, man. R.I.P. Norm Macdonald. I feel like we're starting with the R.I.P.
I
every
know.
week lately.
Two
All
in a
the hitters,
row.
man.
Two real bummers in a row. Yeah, Norm Macdonald, like, I don't care who your favorite comedian is. Norm Macdonald's probably your favorite comedian's favorite comedian. Like, he's that type of thing. He's just, if you like internet rabbit holes, like, you know what I mean? Like following a specific topic or subject matter on the internet with YouTube videos and stuff like that. The Norm Macdonald internet rabbit hole is one of the hittingest ones that's ever existed. If people have never partaken in that, it's endless and so
Mhm.
funny. Just click around various Norm videos on YouTube and laugh your ass off
I,
for hours on end.
I would recommend any of his O.J. Simpson jokes.
Yeah.
His him roasting Carrot Top on the old Conan show.
Any of his Conan
Uh,
appearances, most of his late night appearances, all those are great. He
on
tells stories
Conan's
about Bob Euchre. That one's really good. Look
mm,
that one up, the baseball
yeah,
announcer.
him Conan's last Tonight Show taking the welcome basket, which he'd never gotten around to giving 6 months earlier.
Yeah, yeah.
Uh,
That's so funny.
the Comedy Central roast where he only did compliments.
Yeah. Yeah, man. Just
Yeah.
a legend. Gone too soon.
Oh,
Rest in peace. Yeah.
the gift basket, like one thing I love about comedians is no one knows how to fail in style better than them slash us. And the his monologue and on SNL after he got fired was brought back to host a year later is fantastic. Where he's
Hmm.
like, a year ago it was so goddamn unfunny they wouldn't let me in the building, but now I'm so funny I get to host. So either I've gotten way funnier or the show's gotten way worse.
Yeah.
Always kills me.
Yeah. Rest in peace to a legend. But the show must go on, as they say. With us, as
Mhm.
always, is producer Matt. This is Weekly Skews. I want to remind you, I'm on tour. If you are vaccinated, you go to wellreadcomedy.com for tickets. I'll be in Atlanta in a couple of days, plenty of other places after that. You can also support me on Patreon if you'd like. And a little later in the show, producer Matt has made us some shirts, some Skews shirts. We're going to be sharing those with you as well. As for the show tonight, we got a little update on the circus that is the California recall. Today's the big day, and you're never going to believe this, but the main Republican out here seems to be a bit of a lunatic. I know that's not fitting for them lately, but it's true. We'll talk about that. I'm going to ask Mark for a little update on the big vaccine mandate from over the weekend as I was on the road and some other fun stuff as well. But because we have a lot of candidates for it, let's go ahead and do the Daily Dumbass. Matt, graphic, please. Tonight's dumbass, the gentleman in Trinidad who thought he could hide his swollen balls from Tucker Carlson. What even is the world we live in? In case you missed it, rapper Nicki Minaj shared her rationale for being against the vaccine on Twitter, and it was pretty specific. And then Tucker covered it for his fans, which we will see here.
She said that her cousin in Trinidad, quote, won't get the vaccine because his friend got it and became impotent. His testicles became swollen. His friend was weeks away from getting married. Now that girl called off the wedding. So just pray on it and make sure you're comfortable with your decision, not bullied. Which seems sensible. Big reaction to this. We'll report on that tomorrow.
Just the hard
More,
hitting stuff over there.
more on this guy's balls
Yeah,
tomorrow.
I know, right? I know.
This
Also,
was,
what a week that guy had. You know, we got his balls
dude.
all swole up. His lady left him. Also, like I love picturing that. Like I thought you weren't supposed to see each other before the wedding, Mark. You can't be getting that intimate. And she sees him. She's like, I can't marry a man with balls that big. Those balls are out of control.
I mean, quite obviously, first of all, this dude confided in his friend, who happens to be Nicki Minaj's cousin, apparently, that his
Right.
balls got all swollen.
Yeah.
And this is fairly transparently a cover story for an STD he got, but he told that story to his now ex, who was smarter than Nicki Minaj, apparently. And, but if you're wondering, like, the reason I say smarter than Nicki Minaj, why she might be too credulous, there's another reason she might have not gone to the Met Gala besides she didn't want to abide by the vaccine requirement. She is currently married to a guy who just 4 days ago pled guilty to failing to register as a sex offender. And there you go. That's the dude. And I'm willing to bet, because New York's a fairly cramped together town, the Met Gala is within a half a mile of a school or whatever. So that is probably a
Oh, look
bigger
at
reason.
that. Detective
Yeah.
Mark on the case over here, getting to the bottom of it. Because, yeah, that was the context. You couldn't go to the Met Gala for not being vaccinated. That's how this even got brought up. But, like, again, what a world. Because like, there's probably at least a few people I would imagine who exist that are now like, somebody's gonna ask them, "Did you get vaccinated?" No. Why not? Well, did you hear about Nicki Minaj's cousin's friend's balls? And that's their reason for not doing it. But yeah, also like you said, this dude confides in his buddy, and now it's on Fox News. Everybody's talking about his engorged balls. It's like, God damn, you can't have nothing out here in these streets. Speaking of which, the Met Gala, uh, incendiary, I guess. First of all, I don't, and you assume you're the same way. I don't know shit about the Met Gala. Way too, I'm way too trash to even be allowed to know things about the Met Gala. I'm pretty sure. Like, I don't think I'd do well there. But like, man, y'all got a lot of feathers. What's going on? But
I don't have any idea what they do there.
Me
It's a
neither.
reason for existing as a fashion theme. Everyone's supposed to come in theme. Yesterday was something about American fashion, whatever. Nobody really pays attention to the theme. They just wear
So a
weird
lot of
shit and they
Levi's,
go.
I'm assuming. That's what they're doing. A lot of blue jeans, just cool stuff like that. Nothing out insane looking, of
No,
course.
no, yeah, I think Lil Nas X went as C-3PO or something.
Yeah.
I had difficulty where it was like
Cla-
this, like
Well, he's a famous American C-3PO.
yeah. It's supposed to be for charity, but it's probably one of those things where all the money goes to overhead because you got to rent out the Met and pay for all the service and shit. So it's a big route. Anyway, whole thing sucks. It seems really stupid. Don't know what they do other than get dressed up and walk in. Probably one of those eyes wide shut orgy type situations. It's all rich people. But the other big kerfuffle to come out of it was AOC, who did go abide by the theme. She dressed in all white, as she does for a lot of fancy occasions, as a homage to suffragettes. But her dress also had this on the back of it. I don't know if Matt has the picture. Yeah, it said "Tax the Rich" on a dress she wore to the Met Gala. And I don't want to roast AOC too hard because she's probably one of the top 5 Congress people, not being an insane person and actually giving a shit about people. But she has only her second term. She has come down with a pretty bad case of Democrat brainworms. If she thinks this reads optically like whatever she was going for, it's just as dumb looking as Nancy Pelosi's the ice cream fridge, or Gavin Newsom. We'll talk about later, going to French Laundry and having a $12,000 bottle of wine during when no one else can go to restaurants. Yeah.
Well, what did you think of like the sort? Okay, so when I first saw this morning, the first thing I thought was, "Whoo, that's gonna piss them off." Just immediately as soon as I saw her, I saw I got on Twitter, saw a clip. I heard turning around, and I read the back of it, and I was like, "Oh Lord," like they're gonna latch on to this boy, and they did. They started throwing around the word hypocrite and all that type of stuff. And like you said, I mean, I love AOC. I also am a longtime supporter of anything that really pisses them off, as a general rule. But I guess the defense her and the designer have given for it is like, it's important to expose super rich people to the messaging or something like that. You know what I'm talking about? That was like how they sort of laid it out. They were like, listen, these people need to be involved they need to be like confronted with this and involved in the conversation. So doing it in front of all them is, sort of the point or whatever.
Well, this is how like deeply indoctrinated we are. Is like there's no rule that says you can't be a socialist and also have money, right? The idea is you make money off your labor, not off like rent seeking, right? So most of the people there, who actors and musicians, do make money off their actual labor, right? So they are paying a higher degree of taxes. The exception would be like Kim Kardashian, who makes money off, say, like owning a chunk of cosmetics she endorses or whatever. That's a little bit different. But like anyway, it's like it doesn't. They get for Bernie for like being a millionaire off his book sales and having a second lake house he inherited from his dad or whatever. It's just not the same thing. You can want other people to be able to go to the doctor and also have a nice life yourself. The two things aren't mutually exclusive.
I know.
Yeah.
That is how they treat it. Like, we're all supposed to, anybody who thinks you should tax the rich is supposed to be like, living as a beggar, wearing, just rags and walking around barefoot and stuff in solidarity with the poor or whatnot. And it's like, no, we just don't want Jeff Bezos to own all of space and people who work a full-time job to not need fucking food stamps. You know what I mean? Like, that's really what we're talking about. It's not that you can't have any money or nice clothes or whatever. We can get to all that later on, way down the road, once we fix all this other shit first.
It's also way bigger hypocrisy, for example, for Christian ministers to be millionaires off their ministries, right? Your televangelists are way huger hypocrites. So,
No, Mark, that's not true, because I've heard them justify their actions. And did you know that by having a private plane, you can fly closer to God? That's part of it. That's what Kenneth
was
Copeland
that?
said.
Oh,
Yeah.
I was gonna say I remember Creflo Dollar was literally praying for a new jet, and people were giving him money for a new jet, and a guy's name was literally Creflo Dollar. Says what he's doing right there in his name. So,
No, this dude prayed for a jet too, got it, and then he got some criticism, but he said he needed it so he could be literally closer to God. And then he started talking about how to do God's work, he can't be expected to fly from engagement to engagement in a quote tube full of demons. That's what he called like a Delta flight. Yeah, a commercial flight. That's a tube full of demons. That's not what the Lord wants for his, his servant or whatever. So they need planes.
It's also a child's conception of heaven that it's up there in the clouds. So it doesn't even like make any.
Right.
Yeah,
that's where God is, right behind that cloud. Plane, closer to cloud, closer to God. You all get it. All right. Our next honorable mention for Daily Dumbass: mothers-in-law for not lining up for the wood chipper, so this dude doesn't have to make his kids lunch in the morning for school. It'll make sense in a minute. This is from one of the infamous school board meetings that are such nightmares around this country. This one in producer Matt's homeland of South Dakota.
Like all animal species, humans, until last year, have sacrificed their own lives so that young people can thrive. And throughout this, I've heard phrases like, what, am I supposed to let my grandma die so that kids can go to school without masks? Yes, you're supposed to let your mother's mother die of the flu so that kids can go to school and thrive without your anxieties and your fears. Thanks.
Well, there you have it. I almost kind of respect this version of those lunatics, because one of the things that always bothers me so much about them is I feel like they won't just actually say the thing they're saying. Do you know what I mean? Like they dance around saying old people need to die so that the businesses can be open or whatever. Like they won't literally just say that, but every word they're saying is alluding to that, but they'll never just come out and say it. But this motherfucker here, he just laid it out. Yeah. He's not, motherfuckers need to die, so I ain't got to put a mask on this kid. And that's just the way it is.
He skipped straight over social Darwinism straight to just Darwinism. So I wonder
if the ice flows out, dude. Ship them off. They ain't having it.
I mean, evolutionary biologists have struggled for for centuries over like the grandma problem, which is like most sexual species reproduce sexually. You do, as soon as your baby making years are gone, you do fade away and die, right? Whereas humans keep living for another few decades. It's like, oh well, obviously the human offspring take a lot of like effort to rear because they're basically defenseless until they're like 15, 16, 17. So grandparents are there to help you raise your kids. That was always the reasoning they came up with. A lot of them anyway. And this guy is just like, nope, they exist to die. So he got it.
Yeah. They're really just wearing it on their sleeves out there. Those of them that have sleeves. So next honorable mention for Daily Dumbass: city slickers for not knowing that what really powers our tractors is hope. This is just listen to what this old boy had to say at an agriculture conference call.
Yeah.
And frankly, from the standpoint of rural America, we don't produce carbon in rural America. We need carbon to grow our trees and our plants and everything else.
Yeah, that's a Georgia congressman by the name of Rick Allen, who was an agriculture committee bill markup meeting, I think, about the infrastructure bill. So he's arguing against the Green New Deal because people that live in the country, where there are trees and grass, have no interest in the environment. That river water that your cows drink out of has no interest in being clean, I guess is
where does carbon come from? It's like China makes all the carbon, or like just the cities? Carbon only comes from cities. So it's a city problem. We only got good air. All our air is good, clean, rural country air. We ain't got none of that. None of that carbon.
He's like, we need carbon to grow our trees, which is, he does correctly understand that trees aren't very effective at carbon capture. They capture carbon in the air and turn it into tree, right? Yay for trees. Trees do good job, trees. It does that. They can't quite keep up with how much we're producing, especially when we're cutting down the Amazon and shit. So yeah, he read the top line of how trees work and then took it from there. carbon superpowers trees, Cray. We're going to get all redwoods. That's where we're going to get rid of. That's how we're going to get rid of global warming.
I like this clip, but it still ain't as good as old Gomer asking if they could maybe literally lasso the moon, pull it in a little closer, or push it out a little further. I couldn't remember which one, but he was wanting to readjust the moon. Thought that might.
Yeah.
They should look into that. That's my favorite.
Yeah, I think it was pushed because the tides are coming in stronger. So if you push the moon back
push it out a little farther. Yeah.
Then the oceans won't rise as quickly, I think was the idea.
Yeah. Just need a real big space truck, drive it out to the other side of the moon, hook it up, and just tow it out a few more moon feet.
Dude,
you know,
as a redneck, I can tell you not many problems you can't solve with a good enough winch. Just get a winch.
Yeah.
Good old trailer hitch.
Moon stuck. Yeah, we'll get it out of there. Don't worry. With our space truck. All right. Next up.
Here's my favorite runner. This is a good one. Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, no. Next honorable mention, Rudy Giuliani, for a whole bunch of reasons, but most recently having a little bit too much of this old scotch, hitting the sauce a little bit too hard on the 20th anniversary of 9/11. And if you don't believe me, just take a look at some of these clips, starting with this one.
Can you imagine that Tony Blinken or Miley? How's that guy a general? Jesus. The other day, he said that the Bagram Air Force Base is not strategically important. I wanted to grab his, what do you have, 5 stars, 10 stars, 12 stars? He has so many stars that coming up into his ears. I wanted to grab his stars, shove it down his throat, and say, "It's 400 miles from China, asshole! China is going to be our enemy for the next 40 years."
So, okay, that goes on for a full well, apparently it went on for a very long time, but that clip goes on for 2 minutes. By the end of it, he's literally just he's looking at the crowd, trying to remember people's names and stuff, and just asking them how many people helped them. And he's like, "Joe, you know what I'm talking about. How much help do you have? Right? Shit like that. Just going full drunk dude at the wedding, man.
Yeah, that's apparently a dinner they've had every year on 9/11 since the first one. So yeah, it's just like he's probably been giving that speech every year for 20 years. So thanks for the Afghanistan withdrawal from giving me new content. The idea that we need to be 400 miles from China to do war against it, it's like that's not how war is going to be done. And also, we don't want to go to war with China. War is bad. Plus, anybody that's tried to buy anything with a semiconductor chip and recently knows that we need to trade with China to build basic shit in America anymore. Mm-hmm. We couldn't even get PPE and toilet paper from China. So, yeah, that whole thing was a full-on event. He issued a denial afterwards, saying, "I'm not an alcoholic. I'm a functioning." That's what he said. That was the exact quote, which is just hilarious.
Not functioning alcohol, just I'm a functioning. Yes.
He obviously stopped himself for saying a functioning alcoholic. He was like, he literally said, "If I was an alcoholic, I'd be dead by now," which is like a really funny way to say you drink heavily, but not quite too much. But so he caused a little bit of an international incident with the royal family because the speech went on, and he did this series of things which are fucking hilarious.
This is great.
She said, you did a wonderful job on September 11, and therefore I'm making you an honorary knight, commander of the Royal something or other. I turned down a knighthood because if you took a knighthood, you had to lose your citizenship. I know Prince Andrew is very questionable now. I never went out with him. Never had a drink with him. Never was with a woman or a young girl with him. Ever. One time, I met him in my office, and one time when we had the party. Right, Bernie? You were there.
Yeah, Bernie's like, leave me out of it, man.
I know, Bernie. Imagine Bernie. That's what I'm saying. The end of that kills me. Like, in the context of that, it'd be like, right, Bernie, you were there. Come on, man. I mean, again, he's literally just like, it's like a scene from a movie where somebody's dad gets too hammered at the wedding and just starts doing all the wrong things. But yeah.
If you're not familiar, Prince Andrew is a credibly accused pedophile who hung around with Jeffrey Epstein. A lot.
Cohort. Yeah.
Is being
Went to the
sued
island,
by
rode on the plane a whole bunch, all that shit.
is being sued by an Epstein victim and chose to go on 60 Minutes a couple years ago and give a very sweaty non-denial, after which the Queen canceled his birthday party. She was so mad at him. So there you go. British royal family don't hit. So, so that impression was of the Queen, if you couldn't tell. His British accent's better than mine, so I'll give him that. But so the royalists, the people who love the royal family, got real mad about this, making fun of the Queen, doing an impression of the Queen, and making fun of Prince Andrew. And so he was all over the Daily Mail and the tabloids, and he had to apologize to them. And they did a deep dive investigative report and asked him exactly how much he drank. And he said, according to the Daily Mail, I had one scotch. That was what he had. One scotch.
Dude, this whole headline is great from the Daily Mail. Exclusive. Yes, I had one scotch. Giuliani says he was not drunk during rambling September 11th speech at Cipriani, that's the venue, isn't an alcoholic, and denies mocking the Queen. Claims he is the victim of a left-wing smear. And then producer Matt points out the title of the video clip there is Drunk Rudy Giuliani Imitates Queen During 9/11. It's just, again, dude, what even is the world? It's insane.
Yeah, you destroy your whole country and economy, and cause a series of political ramifications leading to Brexit. It's called supply shortages, where you can't even get the snacks you like in British grocery stores at the moment. And your payback for it is Rudy Giuliani making fun of your monarch while lit out of his mind. Yeah,
Giuliani's buddy Trump had a pretty big 9/11 too. He had a lot of shit going on. This one, I'm definitely going to need you to walk me through.
Right.
I don't know a lot about the Moonies. I'm not going to lie to you. So,
all right. So the Unification Church, founded by a refugee from North Korea, lived in South Korea, then moved to the United States. His last name is Moon. I'm not going to try to remember it. I think it's Sunya. I'm not going to butcher it because I forgot to memorize it. He claims to be basically reincarnation of Christ, or claimed to be. He died. His wife's still alive, running the organization. He died a long time ago. If you're wondering why she outlived him by so much, is because when they got married, he was 40 and she was 17. Always be like that. You know how it is. So it comes to America, starts this hugely influential church that's huge in right-wing politics because it was founded as an anti-communist group to try to overthrow North Korea, right? This church believes in it's called the Unification Church because they want to unify the Korean Peninsula. It's been called a cult by a lot of people. Moon, by the way, spent time in federal prison for filing federal income tax returns and conspiracy to do that. So always be like that, right? It's always about not paying taxes. So it's very controversial. One of his sons, by the way, runs a militia compound in Texas where they carry AR-15s to church. And just if you're wondering, yes, he was there on January 6th. So Trump showed up there to do a paid appearance because he's going to get that motherfucking check, baby. So this was a little bit of that.
Donald Trump, who will now deliver us a priceless speech on heavenly unified Korea and the vision of peace.
It is a great and profound honor to address this 7th Rally of Hope and to speak to you today about a cause that is very close to my heart, the dream of peace and unity on the Korean Peninsula. I want to thank the Universal Peace Federation and in particular, Dr. Hawk Jahan Moon, a tremendous person, for her incredible work on behalf of peace all over the world. Her story of escaping from North Korea at 5 years old at the outset of the Korean War is an amazing example of the power of faith in Almighty God. I also want to thank her late husband, Reverend Moon, for founding the Washington Times, an organization for which I have tremendous respect and admiration. They have done an incredible job.
So yeah, the Moody's don't just own the Washington Times. They own a car company and a bunch of media. I think they own the Epoch Times too, which is that when you see a weird link shared on Facebook about conspiracy theories and stuff, that's them.
Right.
So that's one of the things he did on 9/11 was do a paid appearance at a cult rally. He also he went on Newsmax. Trump making up lies about what he was doing on 9/11 is like one of his favorite genres. I mean, there was the whole thing about how he went down there with digging into the rubble, which You don't have to take my word for it. He didn't do. No one else saw him there. And also, he was on Fox News the entire day bragging about how he now had the tallest building in Manhattan.
Yeah, everyone. If you remember anything about Trump on 9/11, you remember that he was talking about having the tallest building in the thing.
Matt's correcting me. Epoch Times is Falun Gong, which is a different cult. So he made up a new one this week, and it's pretty awesome. Check this, play the video, Matt.
That are very possibly going to be pouring down on them any minute, and they're working like nothing's wrong. I mean, they're amazing.
So that's 20 years ago. We're back with the former president on the phone. Sir, thank you so much for joining us tonight. I want to just ask, at that time you offered to help, and what a mess we had in New York City. Give us your reflection of that period of time 20 years later.
Well, I was down there right after the event, and I brought a big crew of people down, and I helped. A lot of other people helped. Those first responders are very brave, and I'm telling you, we were hearing creaks. I've never forgotten it. There was, I think, the United States Steel Building, it was called at the time, and it's 50 stories tall. And we heard creaks. I said, that building's going to come down. And two big firemen grabbed me and grabbed other people, and they just moved out of that area. Never came down, but I never heard a noise like that. And it was a scary situation. But the job they did was so incredible. The first responders, by the way, the fire.
So his big story of 9/11 was hearing a noise and then two firefighters saving. They're always two big, strong guys. They're always big, strong guys. Like he's fascinated big, strong guys. But also,
like, I totally believe that I totally believe that he just continuously makes up more elaborate lies about what he did that day. But this one's funny to me because, like, it ends with him saying, yeah, nothing ever happened with those creaks I heard. You know what I mean? But, like, I knew something was wrong, and I let them know. And they were like, oh, shit, he's right. He knows building stuff. Let's get everybody out of here. But then he ends it by saying, and it was all fine. But, yeah, some wild noises going on that day.
Yeah. I mean, like, at least
wild shit, man.
At least when Mark Wahlberg says he could have stopped 9/11 if he was on one of those flights and shit like that, Mark Wahlberg's been in some fistfights.
Yeah.
Like Donald Trump is like, I think he beat up one of his teachers when he was in high school, but that's the only thing I ever heard about him being tough.
You don't think Donald Trump can fight, Mark?
There is a story he tells. He got a place in a tabloid in the 80s. I bet in the early 80s, late 70s, back when New York was still considered pretty crime-ridden, about him riding through Manhattan in his limo, and he sees two guys beating a guy with a bat. And he jumps out of limo and says, hey, cut that out. And then, of course, they do. And they go, oh, it's Mr. Trump. Then the muggers run off. They called him Mr. Trump as they ran away. And,
sorry for the crime, Mr. Trump. We didn't mean to be doing crime in front of you, Mr. Trump. We'll make sure to keep all our crime away from your delicate eyes, Mr. Trump. We have no intention of doing more crime. We would never.
He's basically Batman, except didn't bother putting on a costume. So he's the hero Gotham needed at that point. But the big guy had a huge week. I mean, he also spent 9/11. He called a celebrity boxing match between a bunch of has-beens. So there was he had a bunch of 50s. I think Vander Holyfield boxed at 57 years old. Tito Ortiz, a QAnon MMA fighter, got the shit kicked out of him. He retired from city council in Orange County to do this fight and get his head caved in. So that was cool. But the one newsworthy thing that happened was the pre-fight weigh-in. Speaking of Trump getting violent, he decided to talk shit. Put the clip.
Got a promo here.
From Josh Peter of USA Today. If you had to box somebody on Saturday night, who would it be and what would the fight look like?
Well, if I had to pick somebody in the world, not only a professional boxer, because I'll take a pass on the professional boxers, that can be a very dangerous subject. But if you said, if I had to box somebody,
anybody,
I think probably my easiest fight would be Joe Biden, because I think he'd go down very, very quickly, very, very quickly. You know, he once said, "Oh, I'd like to take him behind the bar," and he'd be in big trouble if he ever did. Now, I think Biden would go down within the first few seconds.
The first few seconds? All right, President Trump, thank you so much for your time. We will see you on Saturday night.
Yeah.
Former president out here at, like you said, celebrity boxing match, literally talking about whipping the current president's ass in a parking lot or whatever. And they're both fucking, in their 70s. And again, I can't stress this enough. Presidents. I mean, I don't, it's just, I say again, what even is the world?
I mean, how do you think that fight would actually? Because Trump's got a bunch of weight on him, obviously, and a height, I think. So does
is he a lot taller than Biden? I don't know how tall either one of them is. I'm sure Trump's gonna say he's 6'5" or whatever.
I think Trump's 6'3", 6'4". I don't think Biden's that
okay.
Yeah.
I don't know. Listen, I mean, sure. Yeah, I knew as soon as I saw this on the lineup, we would end up just discussing who, in fact, would whip the other one's ass. No matter who wins, America loses. Am I right? But it's not that I think Joe Biden could like whip ass. You know what I mean? I don't look at Joe Biden. I'm like, yeah, no, he could, throw hands. I don't get that vibe from Joe Biden. It's just that I just can't imagine Donald Trump ever whipping anyone's ass for any reason. I can't imagine he has any kind of competency. I mean, he could sort of like fat all over him, you know what I mean? Because he is bigger than him. So if he kind of just like fatted him to the ground and then just sort of stayed there, Biden passes out from all that hairspray or whatever, starts to asphyxiate, then maybe it could go Trump's way, I guess. But he ain't going to be like setting the tone with the jab or nothing like that and start working the body. He ain't going to do none of that shit.
I think in an MMA fight, if they got to go to the ground, I think Trump definitely has the advantage, right? But if we're doing by like boxing rules, first of all, Joe's definitely going to do some like Marquis of Queensberry stuff. He's going to do the old timey boxing with his upside down hands like that, right? Mm-hmm. And Trump's going to like do the overhand, like run like a kid, just brawling. And if Joe can backpedal enough till he gets winded, I think that's how it's going. He's going to rope a dope him. Just going to rope it up. He's going to run. He's going to Floyd Mayweather.
A whole lot of people over here are saying that he apparently is known to wear lifts. Trump wears lifts. He's 6'2" with lifts, so he wears heels or whatnot. Other people are pointing out, remember when Trump couldn't navigate the ramp? I saw somebody, but I lost it, saying, hang on, I like this one though. Somebody saying literally all Biden would have to do is walk because Trump couldn't catch him. Yeah, but we're talking about they've already walking's out the window, okay?
You got to
put them in a ring, make them do it. Nicole Johnson says Bernie would end up coming in with the steel chair and whoop all their ass. By God, that's Bernie Sanders music. As God is my witness, he's broken in half. Oh man.
Yeah, we get some politicians in their 80s. Is my takeaway from this.
We need the MTV Clay ring matches. We're up celebrity death match that MTV used to do.
Yeah. So anyway, so they did have the boxing match, and like there was people the crowd was chanting "We want Trump." And if you're wondering what they're representative of, these are people that bought tickets to see Tito Ortiz box. So it's not this isn't like some random sampling of America.
Eric B. Trump's got those tiny baby hands. That's right. It's got to be a factor too, I think.
Short-fingered Bulgarian. Yeah.
Okay. Shit, Mark. We live in California. I don't have a good bead on how much everybody else is paying attention or not to the California recall, but it's a shit show. It's an American politics situation, so of course there's a lot of shit and a lot of show, and it's a bit of a circus. But today is the day. However, we're not going to know anything, right, Mark? That's generally accepted. It's going to be a while before we know what actually happens.
Yeah, California doesn't really get in a hurry to get the ballots counted. It never really matters much to the presidential election because everyone knows the Democrats going to win and just call it and move on. But statewide, I mean, Democrats seem pretty cocky about this, and maybe they're safe. But I do think their decision to white knuckle it down to the line was pretty destructive. But I think Gavin is pretty safe unless this won't make sense to you. This video clip. It just depends on how many dudes' girlfriends he fucked in high school. Matt Rosa.
You remind me of the guy in high school who took my girlfriend, then went on to the next girl. You still think you're better than everyone else. You shut down public schools while your kids went to private school. Even now you live by different rules. You closed tiny coffee shops while you ate dinner at the fanciest restaurant. $12,000 for wine. You've lost touch with reality. This is not about political parties. It is about you, Gavin Newsom.
Recall Newsom. Bring us together.
Yeah,
everybody
that's
says
about
that. It's like, it certainly seems like this is about something else. Just get a little overly specific there, buddy.
Yeah. So I think we've talked about Larry Elder a little bit before, but in case you don't know exactly who he is, he's a right-wing talk radio host who's been pretty prominent in that role for a long time. He's just always sort of around doing interviews with Fox News and shit. So a little bit about him. He has said that he would have voted against the Civil Rights Act and the Americans with Disability Act. He literally said that the market would sort out how to deal with handicapped people. He would vote against the minimum wage, and he went on TV to defend George Zimmerman after he killed Trayvon Martin. He's also for reparations for slavery.
Oh, hey,
good news. Yeah, it's pretty progressive, right? Not really. Check out this.
The UK was ahead of us. They were. Do you know that the slave owners were compensated? After they lost their quote-unquote property, the government compensated slave owners.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, and so when people talk about reparations, do they really want to have that conversation? Because, like it or not, slavery was legal. And so their property, their legal property, was taken away from them after the Civil War. So you can make an argument that the people that are owed reparations, and not only just black people, but also the people whose quote property, close quote, was taken away after the end of the Civil War.
No, fuck you. How about that? All right.
Yeah. We don't. I suppose you could make an argument, like you literally could, if you were so inclined, make the argument that slave owners deserved reparations. But why would anyone ever make that argument? Like we don't need to be doing all that.
Yeah, I mean, I think a 400-year head start on property and owning all the land and having built up generational wealth from owning people is a good enough, financial basis to move on with your life. And going, like we brought up Reverend Moon, how it always like that with the tax evasion and weird sex stuff. Well, it always is that way. And Elder, his former fiance came out and said in 2015 he pulled a gun on her during an argument after sex. So that happened. He's also been accused of sexual harassment a few times. And in one case, he said he defended himself by implying the woman was too unattractive for him to sexually harass, saying, quote, "If you had seen her, you would know that the picture would be a complete defense. I'm just saying." Trump did the same
too
thing.
ugly to harass defense. Yeah, that's a classic there. That one goes back a long ways.
Here's an obscure one that I really hit for me. He came out for school vouchers, but not any school vouchers. He wanted school vouchers specifically to go to charter schools that advocate corporal punishment for parents who want teachers to beat their kids.
Hey, this is America. You should have the freedom to have your child beaten by their teacher and exposed to a virus and all that stuff. I'm starting to think you don't even believe in freedom at all, Mark.
Yeah, this is the guy who's going to be governor with 20% of the vote if Gavin Newsom doesn't get 50.1.
So I know we've talked about that on here before, but why is it? Is it some just like archaic loophole of the system that's never been fixed? Or maybe loophole isn't the right word, but how is that the way that it works? Because that could happen. If Gavin Newsom either has to be successful in staving off the recall, or it'll be the top one of them who could be Elder with 20-something% of the vote, and now he's the governor of the state. Like, in what universe does that make sense?
You can call for you can get a recall election on the ballot by getting 15% of the signatures of people who voted in the last election. So that's how low the bar is. And people are really mad at Newsom, who is not awesome. he has been really annoying and bad at optics and fucked up various parts of everything.
He's not been crushing it by any means.
He also has, like, one of the reasons he will never be president is because he got caught in a sex scandal by, I think he had sex with his best friend's wife. Something like that. He also used to date Kimberly Guilfoyle, who was now dating Don Jr. He used to be married to Kimberly Guilfoyle, but now dating Don Jr. So he's shown lapses in judgment throughout his lifetime. Let's put it that way. So But basically, my understanding is when they were writing the California Constitution, the reason that was the low bar for recalls was so low, the California politics was dominated by the railroads, who had taken complete control over California's economy by the use of said things like Chinese slave labor. All right, so it was if a governor was too much in the railroad's pocket, it was going to be easy to recall, and that was the idea. So I ask you, Trey, do you feel like you're suffering under the tyranny of the railroads? I am not. Successful.
Okay, there you go. The railroads took my family's farm and forever now. You know, it used to be a real problem amongst our people. Railroads always coming through, taking your shit. You couldn't have nothing. You needed, you know, a lone stranger to come through town. Yeah, take care of it for you. And if that didn't happen, you were just fucked. Railroad was going to have you over a barrel.
Yeah, I've seen westerns. They come through. They put the railroad right in the middle of your ranch. They make you put up barbed wire. You don't want to put up barbed wire. There's whole wars over that, range wars.
That's right.
So, if you're wondering who's supporting Larry Elder, he's got huge support from luminaries such as John Voight and Mike Piazza, who promised to go to Dodger Stadium and personally thank everyone. Mike Piazza played for, of course, the Mets and the Dodgers later in his career, I believe. Is that the other order right there, Craig? You're a bigger baseball fan than I am. Anyway, Piazza played for the Dodgers.
Yes, yes. That's correct. I know in my head he was mostly on the Mets, but he definitely played for the Dodgers. Yeah, but yeah, he promised to go to Dodger Stadium and say thank you if they vote Elder in. So how can with a deal like that, you almost can't not vote for Larry Elder.
Rose McGowan, the actress who was on Charmed, is also, and she also was in the news a lot recently for Me Too stuff because she was the first and biggest Harvey Weinstein accuser. And she's supporting Elder because of a personal beef with Gavin Newsom's wife, Gavin Newsom's wife is a documentary filmmaker who also was a Harvey Weinstein accuser. But Rose says that she sent her an email trying to get her to tone down her criticisms because her brother works for Weinstein's lawyer. Doesn't really matter. It's a really weird reason to support Larry Elder, even if you hate Gavin Newsom. Anyway, so what's going to happen next when Larry Elder loses? Well, big news. He already has a page on his website saying the election, which hadn't happened yet, is fraudulent. All right. He's detected. This headline sums it up. Larry Elder announces he's detected fraud in California recall vote results, which don't yet exist. He's already been calling for a special session of the legislature to investigate overturning the election that, for the record, hasn't fucking happened.
I hate this so much because this is just going to be the move now, isn't it? Like this is just going to happen in every goddamn election we have in this country for the next however long. If you're like a minoritarian political party who all your hopes depend on, say, for example, to grab the governorship of California, depend on, say, an off-year recall election where you only need to get 20% of the vote. Capitalizing on people being pissed of all political stripes, being pissed off at Gavin Newsom for being an annoying, tone-deaf scumbag. It would frustrate you that, for example, the state of California mailed every voter a ballot. I voted 2 weeks ago. It was very easy. That would be annoying to me. It's not a conspiracy, but it is a huge democratic advantage to have control of the government. People vote.
Yes.
Yes. I know. Yeah, that's the whole thing, dude. It's apparently a major advantage for the Democrats is that when people vote, they win. And you can see how that's unfair for the Republicans. They're not into it at all. They find it very upsetting.
we have to do everything the way the founders intended, Trey, which is to minority voters, white voters get to be in and out like it's a McDonald's drive-through. And minority voters have to compete a double dare course to be able to file their ballot. That's the way the Constitution was written. So anyway, somebody asked him about whether he was going to accept the results, and you'll be shocked what he said if we have that clip, Matt.
Again, whether or not you win or lose, will you accept the results of the election tomorrow?
I think we all ought to be looking at election integrity, no matter whether you're a Democrat, an independent, or a Republican. Let's all make sure that the election is a fair election. So let's all work together, no matter what the results are, to make sure that the results are valid and legitimate, and everybody who voted should have voted. Let's all do that together.
Is that a commitment to accept the results of the election tomorrow?
Let's all do that together. Let's all work together on both sides of the aisle to make sure that the election is a fair election.
Well,
you know what, though? The election's today, and turns out today there was a bunch of weird shit happening at the polls. Do we have this screen? This is from West Hollywood. Check this shit out. Matt, you have that photo. Yeah, it's a poll worker in a Trump 2020 hat and a Where's Hunter shirt. So that guy was fired and kicked out because you can't electioneer a poll, of course. But yeah, he was there. So they're out here trying it.
The balls on these people. Not swollen, though. Not swollen because they don't get vaccinated. Yeah. So they got nice, properly sized balls on them. Mm-hmm. Anyway, okay. Well, listen, I said it up top. Might get that graphic right. Producer Matt made some shirts. I think they're awful nice. Look at that. I got the logo on them and our names. Who doesn't want our names on your chest? You can get the Weekly Skews shirt now by going to weeklyskews.com. Producer Matt is hoping you'll give it a shot. He's set all this up. He's real proud of it. We're real proud of it going there. And we got all the sizes and whatnot. And yeah, if you're into that, then holler at it. Get you some sweet new Skews merch. So with that said, I'm gonna start looking through some comments and stuff over here while I'm doing that. And I'm already, because I can't do two things at once, and I'm gonna try to look through some of these comments and stuff. So y'all hit them with them. But Mark, I was on the road over the weekend, and I'm aware that the big vaccine mandate happened, a federal one, right? And I know that like it was a whole thing. But yeah, so, I don't know, like, how much of a thing. It's just for federal employees is all it is, or what exactly happened with that?
So under authority granted to OSHA for workplace safety, Joe Biden has mandated, and I'm sure there'll be court challenges to this, that every company with over 100 employees has to do weekly testing for all their employees unless they're vaccinated. So what everyone's calling a vaccine mandate is in reality a testing mandate you can opt out of by getting vaccinated. So big fucking deal. I'm sure if you're just trying to annoy people into getting the vaccines, they don't have to like show up to work 15 minutes early to get the PCR test, right? I'm sure, by the way, I'm sure the companies, because the expenses of the test and the expenses of care with patients, the health insurance costs associated with taking care of employees who have COVID, will probably require people to get vaccinated, but that's the company's choice, not Joe Biden's. Joe Biden is just mandating testing so people can go back to work. But J.D. Vance called for mass civil disobedience. Dan Crenshaw urged for a full-on. He said, "What are you trying to jumpstart a full-on?" I forget what he called it. Wasn't revolution. It was I don't know. I forget what the word but he used violent iconography by revolution. Yeah, they did not handle it well, and also they're bullshitting. Fox News on the Sunday morning show, Chris Wallace interrogated then Governor Tom Ricketts of Nebraska about what was so different between the 10 other vaccine mandates that Nebraska has for schools and the COVID mandate. And he got tripped all over his dick trying to answer because he doesn't have a good answer. There is no good answer. It's fully FDA approved. It's way more widely tested than the polio vaccine ever was before it was rolled out. Yeah.
But the freedom, though. Hawks fan on YouTube says, how come Democrats seem to be the only ones able to make fake ballots? If it were so easy, wouldn't Republicans do it too? Well, no, because see, they're true patriots who have integrity, and we're the fraudulent election stealers. So that's the difference. I can see how you'd overlook that, Hawks fan. But I was about to say the only times we've ever maybe not literally ever, but anytime it is identified voter fraud or election fraud or whatever, it's always from them. It's always actually some dumbass on their side attempting it in the first place. So yeah, they do that.
I don't know. I'm not aware of a term for this, but there's a thing for like if you one of the reasons you define the other side as deviant because it excuses your bad behavior, right? So like, but every time they're in power, they seem to really believe the Democrats are up to a bunch of crooked shit because they do try it. They got caught. Like there was a congressional election in North Carolina where Republicans got caught doing a bunch of voter fraud. And there were all the people that I heard about getting arrested for in-person voter fraud this last election or mailing fraudulent ballots were Republicans because they assumed everyone else was doing it. So they were trying to even up the odds. Yeah.
Yeah. Justin Goldberg says, thank you, Mark. Seriously, it's not a vaccine mandate. So, yeah, glad I asked over here. There's people saying that the damn mic is too low. We talk about this before the show every time. Y'all can't see it, but we have what levels they're called. And on our damn screens, it looks as though my levels and Mark's levels are identical. Also, you can see my fucking mic's right in front of my face. So what I'm saying, I believe you all when you say it, and I apologize. So I tried to turn it up a little bit.
I just turned mine up. Hopefully that'll help. So
no, I think yours is okay. Well, I shouldn't even, let's just not even get into it. We'll try to do better next time. Also, some people, and I appreciate y'all saying this, you're saying I should also say hit the like button, like, subscribe, all that shit that you're supposed to say. I literally never say that. But yeah, thank you guys for looking out for me over there. I appreciate it. And plenty of other people are saying that the sound is fine. So who the hell knows? I love y'all either way. Let's see, what do we got? A lot of people arguing about who sucks worse, DeSantis or Abbott. Or saying at least Newsom isn't Abbott, or just it's a real governor shit off out here.
Let me give you an example of okay, so when the pandemic first started, when Newsom first of all, he held off on shutting things down a little bit longer than he should have, but he was one of the first, just not as quickly as he should have. But when he issued the first shutdown order, he exempted Disney's all the entertainment industry is very powerful in California, but especially Disney, which just merged with Fox. It's one of the biggest corporations in the world. Also owns one of the world's biggest theme parks in California, in Disney World. Disneyland's California, right? So he exempted Disneyland from the shutdown order. The whole state had shut down except for the independent principality of Disneyland, it's like Luxembourg. So, but then someone whispered in his ears, Gavin, you're never going to be president anyway. You can afford to piss off Disney a little bit. So then 2 days later, he backtracked. It also, when he went to that, maybe the restaurant was outdoors. Maybe technically was within the guidelines, but it was just really obtuse to go to a birthday party at a really expensive French restaurant when no one else could go out to eat. Mm-hmm. It's like when Nancy Pelosi got her hair did. It might have been within the mildly breaking the rules, like pretty much everyone was doing during the pandemic. But when you're in charge, Caesar's wife must be beyond reproach,
Yeah. Dragon X Flyer, that sounds pretty rad, on YouTube says mandated vaccines go back hundreds of years. There's inoculations and stuff. I know Jim Jordan said that vaccine mandates were un-American, and people started pointing out that George Washington mandated smallpox inoculation, so slightly different, but basic, technically the same thing, to the Continental Army in the Revolutionary War. And he's like, he's like the first American, Mark.
Kind of.
Washington, the very first American he is, other than Jesus, of course. Jesus is the spiritual first American. But other than that, George Washington, number one. That's all just a bunch of bullshit I'm saying. But he's super American, and he was down with with keeping people from dying. He was on board with that, weirdly.
Yeah, George Washington's pretty American, Trey. There's also, and you do any deep dive into vaccine history. We go through this about every once in 100 years. There's a pandemic, and then a vaccine or inoculations, and a huge backlash to it, and then people eventually come around. And yes, I agree with this person. JD Vance does need to shut the fuck up about everything.
Yeah, that was Scotty Lewis who said that. Apparently, the voters feel the same way up there in Ohio.
He's got the charisma of old mayonnaise, buddy. It's showing through.
There ain't nothing wrong with old. Well, it's too old mayonnaise. That's a problem. But
just because it's the 20th anniversary, and I won't ever talk about it much ever again. What's your memory? Where were you at on 9/11? Let me ask. Where were you doing that day? You're in college?
No, I was a sophomore in high school. I was in Spanish class, and also, not that it mattered, what. But this is just kind of wild in retrospect. When I think about it, our teacher in Spanish class specifically, she wouldn't turn the TV on or whatever. And then we left Spanish class, and the whole school was like, everyone else had been watching it in all the other classes, so everybody's going insane. So it was kind of a delay, but it's very much, a flashbulb thing like it is for everybody. I vividly remember all that. I remember walking out of Spanish class. It was like somebody came in there and told her some shit. It went down, and you could tell something was wrong, but she tried to just not get into it or something. And then we all left class, and I remember some dipshit I went to high school with ran out of another room down the hall and yelled, "We're going to war!"
Jesus Christ! It's
wrong.
It is no. I remember. One of the things I remember was the next day, Hunter S. Thompson had an essay. He was writing for ESPN page 2 at the time, but. Quote, the towers are gone now, reduced to bloody rubble, along with hopes for peace in our time, in the United States or any other country. Make no mistake about it, we are at war now with somebody, and we will stay at war with that mysterious enemy for the rest of our lives. And that was really clear to somebody, but for you, me and your Spanish teacher, it was not. I was just out of college, and my first job at a newspaper, and I was sitting at home watching TV, mesmerized, and it didn't occur to me that I work in news now. I should go to work when news is happening. So Totally did not get it. Yeah.
Yeah. Mike H noticed the same thing we noticed. Producer Matt pointed this out. Said, "Man, I always need a reminder to hit like. I noticed how it went up right after you said that. LOL." Producer Matt put that in the comments. Like, holy shit, a lot of people just hit like, and it's like, oh yeah, funny how that worked. Literally never once entered my mind until people told me to do it. So once again, in the words of Randy Travis, it wouldn't be nothing if I didn't have you, you sweet people out there. Yeah, this has been happening a lot, not just with Abbott, and it is always it's something else. But Razor Girl on YouTube says, I can't get over Abbott using, quote, the right to choose when talking about the vaccine. What the actual fuck? They throwing that around. They're all for. They're super pro-choice when freedom's involved. But, not, you know, and by that I mean the shots, the vaccines. But, yeah, they're being pretty cavalier with the right to choose lately.
Yeah, I mean, everyone's made this point, but pregnancies are contagious, so it doesn't. The argument doesn't have any fucking. Yeah. They just like it's a turn of phrase. They think it's a real gotcha, a real own. But here's like talking about the people, whether or not people are going to get the vaccines because of the mandates. It's really funny. You can watch people struggle. There are Reddit threads. You can watch people struggle with it. The anti-vaxxers argue what they're going to do when their workplace requires it. And here's a funny exchange. This guy, he goes, I got my vaccine against my absolute morality. I just couldn't afford to lose my job. Pray for me and my family. This was very hard. This was degrading to the core, an absolute abomination of my freedom, which I will never forget. Literally, one day later, we're fine. Not as bad as I thought it was going to be. Yeah, they'll cry and drag their feet, but the minute they get it, it becomes the inconvenience to them. They go get it.
Wolf Dragon on YouTube says Jim Socks Jordan is un-American. I've just always liked it for whatever reason when people call him Jim and spell it like a gymnasium, you know. Jim.
Yeah,
Jordan.
if you're not familiar, he's called that because he was a wrestling coach at Ohio State.
I know, and he covered up a whole bunch of rapes and stuff. Yeah,
I know you know.
Apparently, very much the thing to. Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, we are doing a show right now. You could have been talking to the other people. Yeah, I don't know what's wrong with me tonight, but yes, that's a pretty wild case there, and it's also like I feel like most people didn't even. I mean, that was a big story, but not on the level of like Sandusky or something. Mm-hmm. And it involves a congressman, which is, I don't know if that's why or what, but it's wild that hasn't been a bigger thing for him. I know people on our side bring it up all the time, but it's like, it's a pretty heavy shit to say the least. And he just rolls with it.
I think sex abuse of college age men doesn't hit people as hard as maybe it's like I think the teen doctor was fondling kids when he gave them exams and stuff, and Jim was told or allegedly was told and didn't do anything about it.
Well, locker room boys will be boys. I'm sure that's what Jim was thinking at the time. Oh, it's a little horseplay. That's all it is. That type of thing. Or he just didn't give a fuck. It's probably, I mean, I'm sure he knew that it was fucked up, but also was like, yeah, I'd rather not deal with all that. So,
yeah, I mean, like, I remember
on highway, Dr. Asshole.
Joe Paterno's defense when he was finally confronted about Sandusky was that he'd never heard of a man with a boy. It didn't even compute for him, which is interesting. I guess he's never heard of ancient Greece.
I mean, he was like 150, 10 years ago or whatever. And, they hadn't invented gays yet, Mark, when he was a kid. Gays didn't get invented until like the 60s or 70s, something like that. You know that? Yeah. Papa ain't never told you that? Yeah. No. None of them had gays back then. Where my wife's from, they still don't have gays now. They still ain't been invented in Wayne County. That's why my mother-in-law will tell. No, fuck Joe Paterno. Fuck all that, obviously. I'm just dicking around. Poor choice of words, maybe, but that's not how I meant
it. Live shows, baby. Live
shows, baby. All righty here. Well, couple quick reminders. Go ahead.
Oh, just the one last thing that 9/11 made me think about. The Onion was on a real banger that whole decade, but
never not been.
It's weird how like clearly some people see stuff like the Hunter S. Thompson quote I threw out there, and like your buddy just went through screaming we're going to war, and then like the Onion is really like right before we invaded Iraq, they had this point counterpoint column they would do, right? And it was a left winger versus a right winger, and it was this war would destabilize the entire Middle East region and set off a global shockwave of anti-Americanism. Versus the counterpoint, no, it won't.
No, it won't.
Oh God!
And it really do be like that, Mark.
Yeah.
It really do be like that. Okay, go to weeklyskews.com to holler at them shirts. Wellreadcomedy.com if you want to see my shows, all that other stuff. Thank you all for supporting us. And hey, hit that like button. That's a damn thing. We'll do that again in the future. We'll be back next week for more Skews. Thank y'all. See you. Love you. Bye.